A study in Scarlet.
Yes, Holmes said. I need to know one important thing. It is just a matter of time. Look, we are going to hear some news now. Detective Gregson is walking down the street and he looks very happy. He is coming to our house. Yes, he is stopping. The doorbell rang loudly. A few seconds later, the blonde detective ran up the stairs and burst into our room. "My dear friend," Gregson cried. He shook Holmes's hand, but Holmes did not shake it back warmly. "Congratulate me. I have made everything clear." Holmes looked a little worried. "Do you mean you are following the right path?" he asked. "The right path? Sir, we caught the man. He is in prison," Gregson said proudly. "And what is his name?" Holmes asked. "Arthur Charpentier, an officer in the Queen's Navy," Gregson shouted. He rubbed his fat hands together and stood up tall. Sherlock Holmes smiled and looked happy. "Sit down and have a cigar," he said. "We really want to know how you caught him. Would you like a drink?" "Yes, thank you, I will have a drink," the detective answered. "I worked very hard during the last 2 days and I am exhausted. It was not hard for my body, but it was hard for my mind. You understand that, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, because we both use our brains for work." "You are too kind," Holmes said seriously. "Please tell us how you found the answer." The detective sat down in the big chair and smoked his cigar. Then suddenly he laughed very loudly and hit his leg because he was so amused. "The funny part is," Gregson cried, "that foolish Detective Lestrade thinks he is so smart, but he is completely wrong. He is looking for the helper Stangerson, but Stangerson did nothing wrong. I am sure Lestrade has caught him by now." Gregson thought this was so funny that he laughed until he coughed. "And how did you find your clue?" I asked. "Ah, I will tell you everything. Of course, Dr. Watson, this is a secret between us. The first problem was finding out who this American man was. Some people would wait for someone to give them information, but that is not my way of working. Do you remember the hat next to the dead man?" "Yes," Holmes said. "It was made by John Underwood and Sons, 129 Camberwell Road." Gregson looked very surprised and disappointed. "I did not know you noticed that," he said. "Did you go to that shop?" "No," Holmes said. "Ah," Gregson said, feeling better. "You should never miss a chance, even a small one." "To a great mind, everything is important," Holmes said seriously. "Well, I went to the shop," Gregson said. "I asked the shopkeeper if he sold a hat of that size and description. He looked in his books and found it immediately. He sent the hat to a Mr. Drebber at Madame Charpentier's boarding house. That is how I got his address." "Smart, very smart," Sherlock Holmes said quietly. "Next, I visited Madame Charpentier," the detective continued. "She looked very white and worried. Her daughter was in the room too. She was a very beautiful girl. Her eyes were red and her lips were shaking when I spoke to her. I noticed that. I began to think something was wrong. Did you hear about the mysterious death of your old guest, Mr. Enoch J. Drebber?" I asked. The mother nodded. She could not speak. The daughter started to cry. I was sure these people knew something about the crime. "What time did Mr. Drebber leave your house to catch the train?" I asked. "At 8 o'clock, the mother said. She tried to stay calm. His helper, Mr. Stangerson, said there were 2 trains, one at 9:15 and one at 11. He wanted to catch the first one." "And was that the last time you saw him?" I asked. The woman's face changed completely. She looked very gray and scared. It took a few seconds before she could say the word yes. She said it in a strange, deep voice. There was silence for a moment, and then the daughter spoke clearly and calmly. "Mother, telling lies will not help us," she said. "Let us tell the truth to this gentleman. We did see Mr. Drebber again." "God forgive you," Madame Charpentier cried. She put her hands up and sank back into her chair. "You have killed your brother." "Arthur wants us to tell the truth," the girl answered strongly. "You should tell me everything now," I said to them. "Telling half the truth is worse than telling nothing. Also, you do not know how much the police already know." "It is your fault, Alice," the mother cried to her daughter. Then she turned to me and said, "I will tell you everything, sir. I am worried about my son, but he did not do this terrible thing. He is completely innocent. I am only scared that you will think he looks guilty, but that is impossible. He is a good man and a Navy officer." "The best thing you can do is tell the whole truth," I answered. "If your son is innocent, the truth will not hurt him." "Alice, maybe you should leave the room," the mother said, and her daughter walked out. "Now, sir," she continued, "I did not want to tell you this, but because my daughter spoke about it, I must tell you everything. I will not hide anything from you." "That is the best thing to do," I said. "Mr. Drebber lived with us for nearly 3 weeks," she said. "He and his helper, Mr. Stangerson, traveled in Europe before. Their bags showed that they came from Copenhagen. Stangerson was a quiet man, but Drebber was very different. He was rude and bad. He drank too much alcohol every day. He was always drunk after noon. He was very rude to the housemaids. Worst of all, he was rude to my daughter, Alice. He said bad things to her, but she did not understand because she is innocent. One day, he grabbed her in his arms and kissed her. Even his helper, Stangerson, told Drebber that he was acting like a very bad man." "But why did you let him stay?" I asked. "You can tell your guests to leave when you want." Mrs. Charpentier's face turned red. "I wish I told him to leave on the first day," she said, "but he paid a lot of money, £14 a week. Business is very slow right now. I am a widow, and my son in the Navy costs a lot of money. I did not want to lose that money. I tried to do my best, but when he touched Alice, it was too much. I told him he must leave the house. That is why he left." "And then what happened?" I asked. "I was very happy when he drove away," she said. "My son is home from the Navy right now. I did not tell him about Drebber because he has a bad temper and loves his sister very much. When Drebber left, I felt free, but less than an hour later the doorbell rang. Drebber came back. He was very excited and very drunk. He forced his way into the room where Alice and I were sitting. He said he missed his train. Then he looked at Alice and asked her to run away with him. He said, 'You are an adult and the law cannot stop you. I have a lot of money. Don't think about your old mother. Come with me now and you will live like a princess.' Poor Alice was terrified and tried to move away, but he grabbed her wrist and tried to pull her to the door. I screamed. Right then, my son Arthur walked into the room. I do not know exactly what happened. I heard shouting and fighting. I was too scared to look up. When I finally looked, Arthur was standing at the door laughing. He had a big stick in his hand. 'I don't think that bad man will trouble us again,' Arthur said. 'I will follow him to see where he goes.' Then he took his hat and walked down the street. The next morning, we heard that Mr. Drebber was dead." Mrs. Charpentier stopped often and gasped while she told me this, the detective said. Sometimes she spoke so quietly that I could not hear her well, but I wrote down everything she said so I would not make a mistake. "That is very exciting," Sherlock Holmes said, and he yawned. "What happened next?" "When she stopped talking," Gregson continued, "I knew the most important question. I looked at her directly and asked, 'What time did your son come home?' 'I do not know,' she answered. 'You do not know?' 'No, he has a key and he let himself into the house.' 'After you went to bed?' 'Yes.' 'When did you go to bed?' 'Around 11 o'clock.' 'So your son was away for at least 2 hours?' 'Yes.' 'Maybe 4 or 5 hours?' 'Yes.' 'What was he doing during that time?' 'I do not know,' she answered, and her face turned completely white. Of course, after she said that, I knew what to do. I found out where Lieutenant Arthur Charpentier was. I took 2 policemen with me and arrested him. When I touched his shoulder and told him to come with us, he was not scared at all. He said, 'I think you are arresting me because of the death of that bad man Drebber.' We did not say anything to him about Drebber. The fact that he knew about the death made him look very guilty." "Very guilty," Holmes agreed. "Arthur was still carrying the heavy wooden stick that his mother talked about," Gregson said. "It was a very strong, thick stick."
"So what is your idea about the murder?" Holmes asked. "Well, my idea is that Arthur followed Drebber all the way to Brixton Road. There they started to fight again. Arthur hit Drebber in the stomach with his stick. This blow killed Drebber, but it did not leave a mark on his body. The night was very rainy, so nobody was on the street. Arthur dragged the dead body into the empty house. I think the candle, the blood, the word on the wall, and the ring were all just tricks to confuse the police." "Well done," Holmes said nicely. "Really, Gregson, you are doing a good job. You are becoming a good detective." "I think I did a very neat job," the detective said proudly. "The young man told us a story. He said that after he followed Drebber for a while, Drebber saw him and got into a carriage to run away. Arthur said that on his way home he met an old friend from the Navy and took a long walk with him. But when we asked where this friend lived, he could not give a good answer. I think my story fits together perfectly. It is funny to think about Lestrade. He followed the wrong path. I'm afraid he won't find anything. Oh, look, here he is."
It was indeed Lestrade. He walked up the stairs while we were talking and entered the room. Usually, Lestrade looked very sure of himself and wore neat clothes, but today he looked very different. His face was worried and his clothes were messy. He clearly came to ask Sherlock Holmes for help. When he saw his partner Gregson, he looked embarrassed and did not know what to do. He stood in the middle of the room, moving his hat in his hands nervously. "This is a very strange case," Lestrade said at last. "It is impossible to understand." "Ah, do you think so, Mr. Lestrade?" Gregson cried happily. "I thought you would say that. Did you find the helper, Mr. Joseph Stangerson?" "Mr. Joseph Stangerson," Lestrade said very seriously, "was murdered at Halliday's Hotel at about 6 o'clock this morning." Lestrade gave us news that was so surprising that we were all shocked. Gregson jumped out of his chair and spilled his drink. I looked at Sherlock Holmes in silence. Holmes looked very serious. "Stangerson, too," Holmes said quietly. "The mystery is getting more complicated." "It was already complicated enough," Lestrade said, taking a chair. "It looks like you are having an important meeting." Are you sure about this news?" Gregson asked. "I just came from his room," Lestrade said. "I was the first person to find what happened." "Gregson was just telling us his idea. Could you tell us what you saw and did?" "Yes, of course," Lestrade answered as he sat down. "I honestly thought Stangerson killed Drebber, but this new event shows that I was completely wrong. At first, I tried to find where Stangerson went. People saw them together at Euston Station at around 8:30 in the evening on the 3rd day of the month. At 2 in the morning, someone found Drebber dead on Brixton Road. So I needed to know where Stangerson was between 8:30 and the time of the crime, and where he went after that. I sent a message to the police in Liverpool. I described the man and told them to watch the ships going to America. Then I visited all the hotels near Euston Station. I thought that if Drebber and Stangerson separated, Stangerson would stay at a hotel nearby for the night and return to the station the next morning. They probably agreed to meet somewhere before, Holmes said. That was true, Lestrade said. I spent all yesterday evening asking questions, but I found nothing. This morning I started very early. At 8 o'clock I arrived at Halliday's private hotel in Little George Street. I asked if Mr. Stangerson was staying there, and they said yes. You must be the man he is waiting for, they said. He has been waiting for someone for 2 days. Where is he now? I asked. He is upstairs in bed. He wants us to wake him up at 9. I will go upstairs and see him right now, I said. I thought that if I surprised him, he might get nervous and tell me the truth. The hotel worker showed me to the room on the 2nd floor. He pointed at the door and was about to leave when I saw something terrible. I had been a detective for 20 years, but this made me feel sick. Under the door, a small stream of red blood was flowing across the floor. I shouted, and the worker ran back. He almost fainted when he saw the blood.
The door was locked from the inside, but we pushed it hard with our shoulders and broke it open. The window was open. A man in his night clothes was lying on the floor near the window. He was completely dead, and his body was cold and stiff. When we turned him over, the hotel worker recognized him as Mr. Joseph Stangerson. Someone killed him by stabbing him deep in the left side of his chest, straight into his heart. And now comes the strangest part of the story. What do you think was above the murdered man? I felt very scared even before Sherlock Holmes answered. The word Rach was written in letters of blood, he said. That was it, Lestrade said in a quiet, shocked voice. We were all silent for a short time.
The killer's actions were so planned and hard to understand that it made the crimes even more terrifying. I was a brave soldier in the war, but thinking about this made my heart beat fast with fear. Someone saw the man, Lestrade continued. A boy who delivers milk was walking down the alley behind the hotel. He noticed a ladder against an open window on the second floor. After he passed, he looked back and saw a man coming down the ladder. The man climbed down very quietly and calmly. The boy thought he was just a worker doing repairs at the hotel, so the boy did not pay much attention to him, except thinking it was very early in the morning to start work. The boy thinks the man was tall, had a red face, and wore a long brown coat. The killer must have stayed in the room for some time after the murder. We found bloody water in the sink where he washed his hands, and marks on the bed sheets where he wiped his knife. I looked at Holmes when I heard the description of the killer. It matched Holmes's description exactly. However, Holmes did not look happy or proud yet. "Did you find anything else in the room that could be a clue?" Holmes asked. "Nothing," said Lestrade. "Stangerson had Drebber's wallet in his pocket, but that was normal because he paid for everything. There was more than 80 pounds inside, but no money was missing. Whatever the reason for these terrible crimes, it was not robbery. There were no letters or notes in the dead man's pocket, except one telegram from Cleveland sent a month ago. It said, J.H. is in Europe. There was no sender's name on the message." "Was there anything else?" Holmes asked. "Nothing important. The man's book was on the bed. He was reading it before he fell asleep. His pipe was on a chair next to him. There was a glass of water on the table and a small pill box on the windowsill with 2 pills inside." Sherlock Holmes jumped out of his chair and shouted with joy. "The final piece of the puzzle," he cried happily. "My case is finished." The 2 detectives looked at him with great surprise. "I now understand everything," my friend said confidently. "I know all the important facts from the moment Drebber left Stangerson at the station until Stangerson was found dead. I can prove it to you. Do you have those pills with you?" "I have them," said Lestrade, pulling out a small white box. "I took the pills, the wallet, and the telegram to keep them safe at the police station. I only took the pills by chance. I did not think they were important." "Give them to me," said Holmes. Then he turned to me. "Now, doctor, are these normal pills?" They were definitely not normal. They were light gray, small, round, and almost clear when held up to the light. "They are very light and clear, so I think they will dissolve in water," I said. "Exactly right," answered Holmes. "Now please go downstairs and bring up that poor, sick little dog. The landlady asked you to end its suffering yesterday." I went downstairs and carried the small dog up in my arms. It was breathing hard and its eyes were cloudy, showing it was close to death. It was a very old dog with white fur. I placed it gently on a pillow on the floor. "I will cut one of these pills in half," said Holmes. He took out his small knife and cut the pill. "We will put one half back in the box for later. I will put the other half in this glass with a little water. You see, the doctor was right. It dissolves easily." "This might be interesting," said Lestrade in an annoyed voice, thinking Holmes was playing a trick on him. "However, I don't see what this has to do with the murder of Mr. Joseph Stangerson." "Be patient, my friend," Holmes replied. "You will soon see that it explains everything. Now I will add a little milk so it tastes good, and when we give it to the dog, he drinks it right away." As he spoke, he poured the liquid from the glass onto a small plate and put it in front of the dog. The dog quickly drank it all. Holmes looked so serious that we sat quietly, watching the dog carefully and expecting something dramatic to happen. However, nothing happened. The dog stayed on the pillow, breathing heavily, but it did not seem any better or worse after drinking the liquid. Holmes looked at his watch. As the minutes passed with no result, he looked very disappointed and upset. He bit his lip, tapped his fingers on the table, and showed that he was very impatient. I felt truly sorry for him because he was so upset. The two detectives smiled meanly because they were happy to see Holmes fail. "It cannot be a chance," he shouted at last, jumping out of his chair and walking up and down the room quickly. "It is impossible that this is just a coincidence. These are the same pills I suspected in Drebber's case, and now we found them after Stangerson's death. But they do nothing. What does this mean? Was my entire idea wrong? No, that is impossible, and yet this dog is fine. Ah, I understand now. I understand." With a loud shout of joy, he ran to the box, cut the second pill in half, mixed it with water and milk, and gave it to the dog. The poor dog barely touched the liquid with its tongue before its body shook violently. Then it lay completely still and dead as if hit by lightning. Sherlock Holmes took a deep breath and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I should have more trust in my ideas," he said. "I should know by now that when a fact seems to disagree with my plan, there is usually another explanation. Out of the two pills in that box, one was a dangerous poison and the other was completely harmless. I should have known that even before I saw the box." This last sentence was so surprising that I could hardly believe he was thinking clearly. However, the dead dog proved that his idea was right. My mind started to become clearer, and I began to slowly understand the truth.